Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Learning Midlane. Today we are going to be talking mostly about wards and vision as a midlaner, how you can use them, how you can use your vision into securing more information and using them to push your advantages. My name is Kurai. I've been a freelance coach for a couple of years now. I've coached some amateur teams and a handful of individuals. So without further ado, let me just firstly address that there's actually a lot of wording guides out there, and some may be really long, some may be really short. Most of them talk about what's wording, why do you ward, the usage of a word, how do you place your word. But for my case, I actually just want to keep it really simple, but there's enough detail for you to actually use your own logic to apply them to your games. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to show you several wording scenarios or wording areas that may differ depending on the situation, depending on the mid laner that you're using, depending on the mid laner that you're playing against, depending on the support or jungle that you're playing against. The reason why I'm doing this is because instead of giving you the fish for eating a day, I want to teach you how to fish. In this case, I want to teach you how to word instead of just giving, say, hey, just put this word here. This is definitely the best word you can put. All right. So that said, let me show you some situations where you can use your word depending on the scenario you're in. But before that, I actually have written a document on what kind of words you should be thinking of and what kind of champions that you need to, or rather, what kind of champions when you're playing against that you have to think of which word to put in. All right, I hope that makes sense. But anyways, let's start with the neutral words. My bad, I should have warned you guys that there's a bright light because I can't turn this too dark. But let's, again, apologies, but let's start with the neutral words here. So what are neutral words, right? Neutral words are basically words that are in the middle, basically in the river. The reason why I call them the neutral words because they work either as defensive words or aggressive words. So the most common neutral words that you will see. Let me just adjust some of these right here. All right. So the most common neutral words that you'll definitely see is definitely a pink here. Just ignore this for a while. And a pink here, right? The most common logic behind this is because you want to defend yourself from either getting ganked from the top laner or the support. Or sometimes the jungler might be roaming or like trying to gank you from this side. Really logical, really simple explanations. And we'll keep it like that, right? Another common wording area is definitely a green word either in here or in here. Again, same reason you want to protect yourself in rivers against ambushes, ganks, or just sometimes interference from the opposing team. Now, a good thing about hold on, let me just erase some of things. A good tip that I have when it comes to pink warding your river is that if you have your either your duo, sometimes that could be your support or jungle. If you actually put two wards around one of the riverside, mainly one in this bush and one in the other bush, and sometimes if your bot lane actually puts one pink ward here, what this does is actually gives you so much control on the bot side river. With this in hand, in your team, the enemy cannot, and I repeat, they cannot walk into rivers safely. It is impossible for them to walk into rivers safely. Now, some of you might argue, okay, but what if they just go in and try to clear the wards? And the reason, and let me explain the reason for you why they can't do that. If they do that, all right, if you just walk up as a mid laner towards them, all right, and if you're jungler, and remember this, I've swinged this in the lane waffle episode. Do check that out. That if you walk up as a laner when they're trying to clear the wards, if your jungler is unseen on the map, meaning if he's either in your base or in fog of war, they have to respect your presence. Otherwise, they might run the risk of getting killed, right? If you're able to get this setup done well, I promise you you will not, or like, you will have a really low chance of dying if you hug bot side. Obviously, this depends on the enemy team comp, but 80% of the time, it's unlikely that you will get killed if you play this out decently. Right? Aside from this, there's also neutral wards that you can place around neutral objectives. Say a green ward outside of Baron or Harrow, or a green ward outside of Dragon. The reason why you want to place it here is sometimes when they put a pink ward inside here, they don't see the green ward here. They don't see the stealth ward. That is the whole reason why. Right? Again, most of these wards here work in mirror, so you can do this as well. But the main reason why you want to put it on your bot side is mainly because usually teams contest for dragons a lot. Your bot lane is so much more important when it comes to scaling towards late game. Obviously, there are games where your top laners can carry the game, but most of the time, top lane is just an island. You can't snowball them, but at the end of the day, most of the time, you kind of need your ADC or at least your APC to do the late game carrying. I am talking in the point of high elo games, at least diamond or maybe high platinum. Obviously, when you're in silver, gold, or even bronze, maybe this doesn't apply as much, but I'm way ahead of myself. Let's move on to the more aggressive wards. Actually, let's move on to the more defensive wards. Right. So what are defensive wards? Defensive wards are wards for you to protect yourself in the early phase of the game. Assume that you have really weak early game champions in your team comp. You want to be placing these kind of defense wards because they are much more available to you. Right. The reason why you can't really go for aggressive wards because you, as a weak laner, is unlikely to have lane priority. Now, what is lane priority? Lane priority basically means that if you can push the lane and go off to help your side lanes or your jungler first. Imagine that if you're a Kassadin and you're against someone, let's say a Lucian, it is unlikely for you to actually push him out if the enemy Lucian plays it right. Most of the time, you'll be getting pushed in like this, right? So, defensive wards are for you to defend your jungle camps for your jungler against the enemy team. So some good defensive wards are around here, 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 and here. Note that why can you put more pink wards inside? Because again, it's closer to you. It's closer to your teammates. You can access them much easier compared to on enemy grounds. Some stealth wards that you can place are definitely here. And perhaps you can place another pink here. Obviously, you can't place that many pinks. You can only place one pink ward per champion unless you have the new item. I forgot what it's called, but it's a warding item that allows you to place 2 pink wards as of patch 10.23. But in any normal circumstances, the reason why, again, you want to play defensive wards is because when you don't have priority, it's very likely the enemy will try to punish you for being weak early and invade your jungle from entrances. Right? And you want to avoid that whenever you're playing as a weak laner. Now, sometimes it could be that you're coming back to lane, your lane hasn't fully pushed yet, you can actually go put a ward, and if it has pushed, you want to make sure to collect the wave before actually warding. Because remember, experience matters more than, well, it matters more than goal, in the perspective that if you can't get the goal, it's better if you can just get the experience. Especially as a mid laner who's trying to scale. Again, say if you're Kassadin, experience matters a lot. So these are the defensive wards. The logic behind the defensive wards is, again, preventing the enemy from snowballing too fast. Right? Sometimes the jungler could, let's say, try to move in from here, try to steal raptors. Now, if you have wards around here, look at how much vision that you can cover to see that, oh, the enemy jungler is here. I know to stay away from my bot side and hug top side. or sometimes the enemy jungler could be invading. That allows to alert your jungler to say, okay, don't go topside. They're much stronger. They can go in for a 2v2. My jungler can actually play bot side because we know that their duo mid jungle is in topside, right? These are what defensive wards are for. It's to see if they're going to invade you, and you can play around that with the information that your defensive wards are giving you. So, moving on, let's go for the aggressive wards. Warning, bright light coming. I remember this time. The aggressive wards. So, reverse the whole if you're playing Wick and let's say you're playing a strong laner instead. If you're playing a strong laner, you can actually push your advantage by having more aggressive wards, deeper wards per se, into their jungle. This allows you to actually plan or set up invades properly. Let's say that their blue buff is spawning. And you don't see their jungler at their bot side jungle yet. You can pretty well set up good aggressive wards, say here or here, maybe even a ward around wolves, or sometimes if you have time, again, because this is much more further than your mid lane, it's unlikely that you can put a ward here, but if you can, it's pretty beneficial for you. But it's very unlikely. It's not practical for you to put this ward down. So let's say their blue buff is spawning. If you have wards like this, it's very unlikely that the enemy will get away walking into their bot side jungle. This is what aggressive wards are for. It's for you to play to push out the enemy from their own territory and deny them of either gold or EXP. Sometimes you can even deny them of tempo. On the red side, it's definitely around here. Note that you want to put this pink ward slightly upwards so you can see if they're walking towards Crux or if they're walking towards red. You don't want to place it around here because sometimes the vision is getting obstructed by the obstacle here, or in this case, the wall. You want to place it up here slightly. Obviously, there's also the green ward where you can place around here to check if the raptors are up or if they're doing raptors. Sometimes you can even place a pink here, but I prefer to have a green stealth ward here instead. Again, the whole logic behind this is definitely to be more aggressive, to be able to push your leads up, and to be able to step on the enemy. Quote unquote, step on the enemy. Kind of a weird flex. I hope you guys are able to understand that, and if you don't, please leave questions in the comments. I will answer all of them. And also, there's two more specifics about warding, and that is protecting against champions like Katarina, Talon, Twisted Fate, Fizz. Obviously, if you're playing champions that you can match their roams, this won't be too effective. But let's say you're playing a mage. Let's say you're playing Orianna, and you're playing into perhaps a Fizz or Talon. It's very unlikely that you can match their rooms. What do I mean by matching their rooms? It's very unlikely that you can follow them after they've decided that, hey, I want to roam to your bot lane. And if you want to match, which means to follow them, it's hard for you. Why? Because if you do try to follow them, what would happen is that, let's say the enemy is already here, right? And you're like, hey, I want to follow them because I don't want them to actually get roamed for free. Sometimes they can just sit in the bush, commonly warded with a control ward to deny any vision. And if you try to walk in, they will try to kill you. This is the strength of an assassin, right? So how do we prevent that? How do we prevent, or at least notify our team of where they're roaming? The easy way is to just put a stealth ward or a green ward in the middle of the lane. Because look, if they want to roam, they have to either go through here, go through here, go through here, or go through here. And in the case if they're walking around here, you can see them, right? You have the vision. So as long as you put a stealth ward or a green ward in the middle of the lane, it's unlikely for them to roam for free. Obviously, this depends on pinging your teammates, notifying them that, hey, my mid laner is roaming, please back off, right? And if they don't, you've done all you could. There's no way for you to realistically follow their roam. This works against things, again, like Katarina, if she tries to roam, Talon, if she tries to roam, Twisted Fate, if she tries to port. The moment you see him walking, you have to just ping your team, right? Lastly, about warding, is definitely how to protect yourself against level 2 ganks. I get asked a lot whenever I'm coaching a client, and he says, man, I always feel like I'm dying to level 2 ganks. The easiest way to prevent this from happening, and here I've also wrote like champions to note when they could be level 2 ganking you, are the most obvious one that comes to mind is J4, Xingjiao, sometimes Graves, sometimes Nunu. It really depends on the state of the game and the team comp. But most of these champions can level 2 gank you. So the best way I can recommend when it comes to avoiding ganks, and the logic behind it, is that if you just put a ward here at around 140, they can't gank you for free. Because they have to walk by here to gank you. Right? Now, you could say, okay, but what if they start bot side? Let me give you a quick tip. And remember this. If they start blue side and you put a ward here and they level to gank you on bot side with blue buff, they are trolling, because the difference between ganking with a blue buff and red buff is insane, right? Red buff gives a buff called Crest of the Cinders, if I'm not mistaken, that deals true damage per 3 seconds, or every 3 seconds, or every tick 3 seconds rather, my bad, and also a slow, which means that if they get on top of you, they will slow you and also deal extra damage, extra true damage. If they gank you from blue side, they don't have any advantages to either slow you down or deal extra damage to you. Worst case scenario, if you're playing this decently, is that you would just flash away from their skill. Now J4, it could be if he decides to EQ, you flash the EQ. If you're against a Xingjiao, you flash the initial part, and then you'll be fine. Now obviously, when you are against these level 2 junglers, you want to be playing more passively than you should, so that you don't push yourself up and let yourself be vulnerable to ganks from behind. But anyways, I digress. I'm going far from the topic of warding. The whole point of this video is for you to just understand that depending on the situation, you need to ward differently. Each ward, when you place it down, should serve a meaningful purpose. It could be you're trying to defend yourself. It could be you're trying to defend against or trying to set up for neutral objectives. It also could be you're trying to snowball harder through the power of vision. I hope this video gives you some insight on how to use vision better as a mid laner. I know there's a lot of other videos out there, and I try to be more unique towards when it comes to putting wards down. This is just my take. I do recommend in watching other guides on their opinions when having vision down as a mid laner. So, without dragging you guys too long, I will see you in the next video. Bye.